here in the Mercedes-Benz Museum in Stuttgart, and this is an incredible place. 125 years of history, all leading to this. This is a Formula One car, and the Formula One industry is one of the most innovative industries in the world today. If teams don't innovate at the start of the season, by the end of the season, they're coming last. Back in the 30s, 40s and 50s, there were two kinds of teams in Formula One. There were the haves and the have-nots. The haves had big budgets, they had plenty of engineers, they had big teams, and they produced fabulous cars. There were also the have-nots. No budgets, very small teams, just a few people. But there was a big difference. The big teams were comfortable with what they had. They thought they could win every race because of their resources. But then came along a whole bunch of very innovative teams, the have-nots. They were basically British teams, and the famous Enzo Ferrari looked down on them and called them garagistas. It was a word of disrespect. He thought they would never catch these fast Ferraris. But because they didn't have the budgets, because they didn't have the teams, they were forced to be innovative, to think in new ways, to come up with new ways of doing the same thing better. And so, for instance, you see the cars behind me here. Big, long engines, big, long bonnets for large engines. The garagistas came up with the idea that if I moved the engine from the front to the back of the car, I would get far better speed around corners. Guess what? It worked, and the garagistas went on to become much faster cars. And those teams, the garagista teams, are still in Formula One today, the top teams in the sport. So the big teams thought they knew everything. They didn't try new things. They just kept doing their own way. They thought better. It was the teams that didn't have the resources that were forced to think in totally new ways, to put concepts that don't normally go together in fresh ways, and came up with novel concepts for the first time. Just behind me here is a Formula One car. It's a McLaren MP423 from 1998. And in Formula One, innovation means the difference between 1 second, 2 seconds, beating the opposition or losing. And you can see all the wings, all the variety of devices on the car as engineers attempt to get 1 second out of every lap. One of the innovations on this car that nobody knew about was that at the beginning of the season they came up with a novel idea. On this car, all the wings and all the little aerodynamic devices, as engineers attempt to glean every second, every fraction of a second speed out of the car. So you can see on this car, if you compare it, how much cleaner the lines are after all of those little winglets were banned. And so the FIA, the governing body of Formula One, keeps coming up with reasons to stop development, while the engineers have to work harder to come up with new and inventive ways to increase innovation on their car.
I'm sitting what feels like just inches off the ground. I feel like I'm lying down. I could have a little snooze right now. How do they do this at 300 kilometers an hour? Lloyd, tell us.
McLaren invented something incredibly good for catching up with the opposition. Most cars have 3 pedals, a brake, accelerator and a clutch, and the driver uses those pedals to race. McLaren put a 4th pedal, something no other team had done, no other team had thought of, and for 6 or 7 races they managed to keep it completely secret until some journalist put his camera down inside the cockpit and took a snapshot, and then the news was out. What did this 4th pedal do? Well, When the driver pressed that pedal going around a corner, it would apply the brakes on the inside wheels only. That means the car basically pivoted around itself, and that gained the car half second a lap. That meant that car won the championship in that year. Innovation made the difference for speed for that car, and that's why that team won the championship.
You're on. You're on. You could say something if you want.
No.
Okay, just walk.
So this basically allowed the car to pivot around itself, gaining about half a second every lap. That was enough to keep in front of the competition, and that car won the championship that year. This car only has two pedals, which is what they all had since about 2000. Size of it. Just must have been posing on the road.
Hey, tourist.
This is nice.
Beautiful.
Colour this
Isn't it beautiful? White cars, and it's just But look, if you take this picture from the front, you just because of the golden rules. Well, just if you're doing this sort of stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And even if you're filming speed.
You're on. You're on.
We're here in the Mercedes-Benz Museum in Stuttgart, and I want to show you this Mercedes-Benz SL from 1955, this beautiful coupe. And take a look down here. There's a sports car with extraordinarily tight stiffness is required. And this car, because of the design of it, does not have a stiff chassis. I need to start again. Context what I'm talking about. The amazing convoluted wings.
Just talk so I can at least know what I'm filming.
Well, in the early years, cars were a lot cleaner, and as aerodynamicists realised how significant aerodynamics were, little wings like this popped up all over the car, and they were eventually banned by the Formula 1, the FIA, because they were deemed to look ugly. And it just shows how hard they work in innovation in Formula 1. That's what I'd say. Look at the wing on that.
Fire away.
Okay.
Much has it?
I get you.
You're right.
So with a sports car, stiffness is very important. And to get the stiffness that the Mercedes-Benz engineers required, they had to put a very large beam along the side of the car. And if you have a look at the side of the car, you'll see that there's a large height to the bottom of the door. That meant that they could not get doors which would open in a normal fashion. So what the engineers came up with was that the doors would open upwards, hinged in the roof. And from that they developed a most extraordinarily beautiful car which has become iconic in the world of historic cars.